Major, and of course later Colonel Kira Nerys is, without question, one of the strongest female characters in the entire Star Trek franchise. She is also one of the most fascinating when one learns about not only her character, but of course the fabulous actor who played her, Nana Visitor. I am Sean Ferrick for TrekCulture, and here are 10 things you didn't know about Kira Nerys. Number 10, she was originally labelled a turncoat. It's fairly well known that the character of Kira Nerys was intended to be Rose Laren, with Michelle Forbes returning for the role. Forbes herself passed on committing to a television show, which gave the producers an opportunity to design an entirely new character, with Nana Visitor taking the role. Her initial description was that she was a belligerent officer, highly critical of the new government that had taken control on Bajor. While that element of the character was retained, one that was quietly dropped was that her former terrorist compatriots saw her as a turncoat. While it's touched on in the series, her initial brief would have seen her helping round up her former cellmates, and at least those who refused to fall in line with the provisional government. There was a bit of a shift in how this was presented. Kira was always hot-headed in the beginning, but she was also fiercely loyal to her fellow Bajorans. One early example of conflict was in the first season episode Progress, which saw Kira tasked with removing an elderly man from his home. It was the first of many heartbreaking moments for her. Number 9. Kira may hate GARAK, but behind the scenes, things were a bit more loving. The end of Deep Space Nine's 4th season saw Kira suddenly inherit a surprise, the O'Brien's baby boy, nestled warmly in her womb. There was, of course, a very pressing real-world reason for this. Nana Visitor was then pregnant with her second son, this one with Alexander Siddig. The storyline explained the baby bump nicely, with a joke or two thrown in for good measure, such as Kira telling Bashir that her condition was his fault. Their son, Django El Tahir El Siddig, was born in 1996. On screen, Kira and GARAK were almost always at odds, though in real life, their relationship was a lot warmer. Andrew Robinson is godfather to Django, which is not only a lovely thing to know, but the very unusual combination of Bashir, GARAK, Kira, and the O'Briens sort of helps this make sense in universe as well. Number 8. Do Bajorans dream of undercover Cardassians? Second Skin is one of the strongest episodes of Deep Space Nine's 3rd season, written by Robert Hewitt Wolfe. The introduction of Tekeni Gamor would set up another strong Kira episode in the 5th season, Ties of Blood and Water, but it was also going to leave an absolute mind-bender of an ending, though that didn't survive into the final script. The original ending closed with Bashir telling Kira he couldn't confirm whether she was Bajoran or Cardassian. This, in Wolfe's story idea, was to ensure that a person is not simply what they appear to be, but rather that they are the sum of their experiences. It would have left the character as something of an unknown from that point forward, so it is understandable that the plot was dropped. That said, as Kira's family were almost all dead before the events of Deep Space Nine, the audience only sees her interacting with Gamor, at least in a contemporary sense. It is ironic that Kira would find the strongest family bond that she has with a Cardassian legate, regardless of whether she was his biological daughter or not. Number 7. That's not bisexuality, that's just narcissism. When playing the mirror universe counterpart for Kira Nerys, Nana Visitor saw the role as something very different from what both the writers and later the audience took her to be. While she believed that this version of the character was far closer to her own personality, though she stressed in an interview that she was not one for sending people to their deaths, she saw her as more of a tactician than a seductress. Crossover saw Intendant Kira falling for her Prime Universe doppelganger. This was picked up on by the writers so that in later episodes like Shattered Mirror and The Emperor's New Cloak, the Intendant was portrayed as explicitly bisexual. Nana Visitor disagreed with this interpretation. She saw that the character's attraction to Prime Kira was from a place of self-obsession. For her, it made perfect sense that the Intendant to fall for herself, rather than it having anything to do with same-sex attraction. Visitor also commented that she regretted the evil character was then seen as a queer character, as she felt there were so few queer characters on television at the time, she didn't want to add to one who was evil. Number 6. A bit of Star Trek before dinner. Nana Visitor had a long connection with Star Trek before she ever donned the nose ridges. In fact, according to her, it was the only science fiction show that she watched in her earlier years, often falling into her lap before going out to work. Visitor had spent years in her career performing on stage, appearing nightly with time to her to catch dinner first. She would work during the day, then cook and eat just in time to catch Star Trek around 6 or 6:30 in the evening. As she said herself, this was at a time when there were no recordings available. You either caught the episode on broadcast or you missed it and just hoped to catch the next one. While Star Trek may have fallen in her path by pure opportunity, it became one of the formative shows in her career. While Major Kira wasn't the first role in Visitor's career, it was most probably her biggest role at that point. She had worked as a jobbing actor for so long that settling into a main role was something of a breath of relief, which of course is not to say that it was any easier for her. Star Trek famously runs seriously long hours every day of filming. Number 5. Kira, Dukat, and Odo too. The second season episode, Necessary Evil, was both an excellent standalone episode and one of the first depictions of how dark Deep Space Nine was going to go. The story, told in both contemporary and flashback, reveals Kira murdered a Bajoran collaborator during the occupation, Vatrik Drassa. The Star Trek Terok Nor novel, Dawn of the Eagles, expands on the story, adding more machinations from Gul Dukat, naturally. While the episode focuses entirely on Odo's investigation and the discovery of the truth, the novel reveals that Dukat had not only been aware of the truth, but had in fact leaked the information to Kira in an attempt to lure her to the station. Wrongs Darker Than Death or Night depicted Dukat's relationship with Kira Maru, Nerys' mother. Following her death in 2353, he attempted to keep a close eye on her children. He was thwarted from keeping Kira Nerys aboard the station by Odo, who had taken sympathy on her, and his aide Gaten Roussol, who smuggled her off the station, killing Dukat's personal assistant Basso Tromac in the process. Number 4. Saints of Imperfection. For Nana Visitor, Ties of Blood and Water was a personal favourite, as it not only revisited the events of Second Skin, but also displayed Kira's fallibility. This, Visitor believed, was one of the many things that helped Kira to stand out from the roster of other female characters in Star Trek. The return of Tekeni Gamor and the scene in which Kira introduces him to Kirayoshi O'Brien are powerful statements on Kira's chosen family. Flashbacks to her time in the Resistance show her missing her natural father's death, and this is juxtaposed beside her love and growing anger toward her surrogate father. Kira almost leaves the man to die alone, stuck on his confessions of his actions during the occupation. Her decision not to do so and to face the pain of losing a loved one marked a critical moment in her journey. Burying Gamor on Bajor next to Kira Taban is also something of a spiritual ending to at least some of Kira's residual pain from her days in the Resistance. Number 3. A feverish connection. His Way, arriving in the show's 6th season, finally saw Kira and Odo getting together, something that neither actor was particularly happy about. Though that may be surprising to learn, it stemmed from both of their beliefs that these characters worked far better as loving friends, rather than friendly lovers. Visitor commented that this was a fight that she lost, in that she knew when to pick her battles. Ira Stephen Bear, who at this stage knew that Odo would be rejoining the Founders by the show's end, knew that Kira would have to be what he left behind. With the stage set, Visitor was able to choose an important part of the episode, the song that she sings, as Lola Crystal. Fever, sung in that breathy way, was a tribute to Doris Duke, the billionaire tobacco heiress, socialite and patron of the arts, with whom her mother had been friends. Visitor recalled childhood visits to Duke's mansion where Duke would sing and play piano for them. It was during one such visit that Duke sang Fever, and the performance stayed with Visitor for years. As she explained, this performance emulated to the young girl what a woman should be like, sophisticated and powerful. In His Way, Visitor was glad she got to play that role. Number 2. Dealing with the Devil. As the occupation was an allegory for so many atrocities in Earth's past, so too was Gul Dukat a stand-in for the dictators and warlords in history. While Mark Alaimo played the character to perfection, Season 4's indiscretion continued a trend of softening the character, not least in the eyes of Major Kira. The Maquis Part 2 and The Way of the Warrior had shown a different side to Dukat, and in this episode, based on the fallout from the dissolution of the Soviet Union, with the Obsidian Order analogous to the KGB, was further intended to show a burgeoning friendship between the two. However, it was never intended that it would develop any further than that, something that writer Robert Hewitt Wolfe and Nana Visitor were adamant about. Kira had spent her life fighting the Cardassians in every way, with Dukat serving as one of the most influential men during the occupation. While Mark Alaimo may have been keen to explore a potential romance between the two, Visitor emphatically stated that the idea of Kira and Dukat ever entertaining romantic feelings was disgusting to her. Though there was a line added at the end of the episode where Dukat says, "I let you know," to her, any hint of anything more was quickly brushed away in the follow-up episode, Return to Grace. Number 1. Nana Visitor wanted her to go full Starfleet. When the show wrapped, Nana Visitor was interviewed about where she believed the character of Kira would end up. First and foremost, she was adamant that Kira receive another promotion. The original script for When It Rains described her Starfleet commission as a lieutenant rather than a full commander. Thankfully, that was amended in the final episode. She felt that it was important for this character, one who had exemplified the message of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, learning to live again, walking with Starfleet to do it, to join the organization fully. This, she felt, would offer a test. Can someone who had lived such a hard life truly adapt to following the Prime Directive, no matter the cost? It would be easy to say yes to this. How many members of non-Federation worlds had the audience seen serving in Starfleet? Yet, how many of those officers had received as much exploration and screen time as Major, later Colonel, Kira Nerys. That is everything for our list today. Is there anything else that you want to know about the character? Let us know. Remember, you can catch us over on Twitter at TrekCulture. You can catch us on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. Make sure you're following us there. I'm at Sean Ferrick on the various socials as well. You look after yourselves until I see you again. Make sure that you walk with the prophets. Make sure that you are leading with kindness in life. Live long and prosper. Have fun and take care. Thanks very much.